welcome to the Fourth Branch program. Glad you can make it. I am MD. This program is dedicated exclusively for those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. Stay tuned as we begin the discussion of a very important, interesting, and enlightening topic. Hope to hear from you soon. Happy listening.
Ignorance is the biggest threat to any democracy. It is, however, the ignorance of the ignorance which represents the greatest danger to a society. It is what turns an ignorant into a lunatic. Thus lies the danger, the peril even of a man, a community, a state, a country, and yes, even a society. John F. Kennedy, the 35th President of the United States, said that the ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of us all. Indeed, it does. We've seen it, haven't we? We've witnessed it. We are all living it, are we not? All men are born ignorant. Many, however, have chosen to stay and live in ignorance. Only a few recognize that ignorance is the root and stem of all evil and have made the choice to be ignorant no more. Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the Fourth Branch program. Today we have a very special program which is the continuation of what we have been discussed thus far in regards to the 2018 midterm election, slated for tomorrow, Tuesday, November the 6th. We will continue the discussion to show you why it is very important for you to vote tomorrow, but most importantly, for every sound-minded individual, Democrat and Republican alike, why it is important to vote Republicans out of office. No, this is not a mistake. This is not a misread. But it is critical among this noise that you're currently hearing of all the politicians across the nation crisscrossing the country asking you to vote for him or for her. We have two presidents, the current one, Donald Trump, and the former one, Barack Obama, also crisscrossing the country asking you to vote for their respective candidate, the one that they support. But today, as we have been doing for the past 5 days, we will show you again, once again, the importance of voting Republicans out of office and the future of the country, the future of your children, of your grandchildren, of your great-grandchildren are on the balance. And it's going to depend a great deal on the choices that you will be making tomorrow during the midterm election. This is not like any other midterm election. It is a defining moment. A defining moment not just for the country, for society at large. We have been in very tumultuous water for the past 2 years. Not because Donald Trump is president of the United States. Yes, it does have something to do with that as well. But the country has been in a tumultuous state because the legislators in Washington, the Republican Party in particular, who has been in control of both houses for the past 8 years, have chosen to do absolutely nothing about corruption, about scandal, about problem in the country. If anything, they have helped to exacerbate the problem. We will show you very shortly why, to help the Republican Party lose this midterm election, is to help the country win. And for every patriot, every sound-minded individual in the country, Democrat and Republican alike, if you are a patriot, it becomes your duty, it becomes necessary for you tomorrow not only to go to vote, but to make certain that the Republican Party loses tomorrow. That is the only remedy at this point. That is the only step that guarantees, in this tumultuous time that we're in, to, at the very least, pull the country out of the bottom of the pit it has fallen. I'll be right back. Join me here on the fourth branch at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. every Saturday. If you stumble on this program, consider yourself a very fortunate individual. I don't say that to be cocky. You see, the 2018 midterm election is tomorrow, November the 6th. There are a few points that I would like to make before we jump into the conversation as to why I mentioned earlier you should vote GOP out of office. One, tomorrow you should make every effort possible to go to vote. If you live in the Northeast, keep in mind that according to meteorology, it might rain starting at noontime. But I would say, do not, under any circumstance, do not let that stop you. Do not let that deter you from voting. Plan to vote either on your way to work, during lunchtime, or even after work. But under no circumstance you should skip this election. It is way too important. It is, as I mentioned earlier, a defining moment for the nation. But don't just vote. Be vigilant. Be extra vigilant. In early voting in Texas just a couple of weeks ago, there was already at least one irregularity which was found and reported. One individual tried to vote for Beto O'Rourke, but her vote was changed to Ted Cruz. That was reported, although we're not sure whether it was just one instance or a glitch. And remember, Beto O'Rourke is challenging Ted Cruz for the Senate seat in Texas. Regardless, do vote tomorrow, but be vigilant. If you feel that something is wrong, don't shrug it off. Call attention to it. There are representatives of both parties at all the voting locations. And in addition, there are reporters everywhere. Now, the fourth branch, which is this program, we usually do not get entangled in taking one side versus the other side. In other words, we try to treat topics, social, political, in a neutral way. But we have made the decision this time to warn Republicans, well, sound-minded Republicans, against voting for their Republican legislators, governors, or mayors. But here's why: because we created the fourth branch in order to explain events through the prism of their impact in our lives in society. In other words, when events that you hear in the news, we do not report the news. We take events that are in the news and we research those events and try to see how it impacts our lives and how it can impact lives in future generations. And we also look at legislation that are passed in Washington, such as, for instance, the $1.5 trillion tax cut, and we look at it through the prism of how it affects the country, how it affects our lives, how it impacts our lives and lives of future generations. But we decided this time to take a side because we are on the side of the country. And today, as it stands, the Republican Party has relinquished its duty to uphold the Constitution and to do what's right by the constituent. So I'm going to give you a few bulleted points as to why we decided to do that. Number one, for 2 years now, if you are a logical person or a sound-minded individual, Democrat or Republican, you would admit that the country has been run more like a banana republic. For 2 years, that's what we've been seeing. Despite scandal which have plagued the Trump administration and the rampant corruption in Washington, there is not a single congressional investigation to seriously look into those matters. For instance, just out of the blue, I can say that the EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt had more than 21 charges against him. 14 of them are currently being investigated by federal authorities. Not a single congressional investigation. Republican legislators in the White House have proven they left no room for ambiguity that you, the constituent, do not matter. That's one reason that we decide, instead of sitting on the sideline or not adding our voice to the conversation, we decided that we should let you know that it is not only important, it is imperative, but it is okay, even if you are a Republican, to vote against your Republican representative, because the very point you vote someone in office is to do the job for which you voted for that individual. And for 8 years, Republicans have been in total control of both houses. They've been pointing fingers, obviously, to Democrat, but it's almost like someone who is in control at the wheel, but they blame everyone every time they get the car into a pothole. Every time they They dump the car into a pothole. They blame the passenger that's sitting in the back. So that's what Republicans have been doing for the past 8 years. They're in full control of both houses. Now, for the past 2 years, they have been in control of all levels of government, legislative branch and executive branch. And currently, even the judiciary branch, the justices, the court, the Supreme Court, full control of Republicans. Second, Republicans have lied to the constituent about a lot of things. They are once again trying to get your vote just to deceive you. Here's a good example. 64 times the Republicans, all of the Republicans, except for one individual who is no longer with us, John McCain, all of the Republicans voted time and again to get rid of the Healthcare Act, known under Obamacare. 64 times to be exact. 62 times during the Obama administration and twice already under the Trump administration. But today, you will notice that there are a lot of ads by Republicans that telling you that they're going to help protect your health care. Now, if you choose to believe those people, I would say, well, without trying to mince words, you are a fool. For two reasons, actually, I say that. Number one, if someone tried to do something 64 times, you can rest assured that's what they're going to do once they get hold of power again. And number two, Mitch McConnell, who is the Senate Majority Leader, said just a few weeks ago at an interview provided to Bloomberg that if Republicans keep the House, they're going to try once again to get rid of Obamacare. So this is not a joke. This is not a speculation. Not only they had already done that 64 times, but Mitch McConnell, who always gets what he wants to get, said unequivocally, if the Republicans keep the House, they're going to try to get rid of Obamacare again. Now, keep in mind that Obamacare currently covers 20 plus million individuals. Not 20 plus million Democrats, 20 plus million individuals, Republican and Democrat alike. And quite a few of those individuals have pre-existing conditions. Now, getting rid of Obamacare, simply saying not only throw those 20 million people out of healthcare, but people with pre-existing condition would not be able to have access to healthcare any longer. Now, this is your Republican legislators that have been doing that, trying to get you out of the healthcare system. Now, you can reason as, I'm a Republican, I'm going to vote Republican. How about I'm an American, I'm going to vote for the party that helping me keep my healthcare, that helping me cover pre-existing condition, that helping me cover my kids up to 26 years of age, and so on. Why would anyone justify voting for someone on a party line when the other party is helping you improve your own life? Now, here's something even more interesting. That's number three in the reason that we have decided to weigh in. 14 Republican governors at this point, since 2010, have blocked access to the Healthcare Act to their constituent in their state. Not because the constituent don't want it, not because those governors decided there is a better alternative, just because they just don't want to provide this constituent this opportunity to be covered for pre-existing condition. Now, I don't know your level of intelligence, but to me, it is a clear-cut case. He is someone that I elected governor of my state to help me improve my life, my health. And that individual is the one that comes and actually put an obstacle so that I cannot get to that. You don't have to be a genius to realize that that person is not doing things for my benefit, is not it doesn't have my best interest at heart. So if you are a Republican, but you are an American first, there is no ambiguity that you need to remedy the problem by voting your governor, your mayor, your congressman, your legislators out of office. There is no if and but about it, because they already made the case for themselves. They already made the case to vote them out of office. If you hire a contractor who doesn't do the job, cannot do the job, will not do the job, I am fairly certain you'll get rid of that contractor. This is your chance. Republican governors in Florida, for instance, people who have pre-existing condition cannot get access to healthcare because Rick Scott did decide not to let the Healthcare Act be introduced in Florida. Now, it's probably irrelevant now because he's seeking for the office of the Senate. I hope Republicans understand that it is not a party thing. We need to take care of our own interests. And if you elect someone that cannot do that, you cannot keep electing the same person and hoping that something is going to change. Ron Paul, who is Rand Paul's father, Rand Paul, the current senator from Kentucky, his father said that, true patriotism requires that you stand against your government when it is wrong. For the past 8 years, the Republican Party has been wrong. They've been doing everything that we, the people, are against. Yes, they have been wrong. But what keeps those individuals in Washington is the fact that Republican constituents keep voting them in office despite the fact what they're doing hurt them, harm the country. So it is necessary when you go to the poll tomorrow rather, to make certain you understand that it is not about Republican or Democrat. It's about what is the individual. Listen, Marcus Cicero, who is a Roman philosopher, 63 BC, said, any man can make mistakes. And we have made plenty. We voted in office people who cannot do the job, who will not do the job. People who do not care about our well-being. People who actually take action that hurt us more than they help us. We have made mistakes. So here's what Cicero said. Any man can make mistakes, but only an idiot persists in his error. So we voted John in office because John said he is going to do X, Y, Z. But John goes to Washington and happened not to do what he proposed to do. And every time that there is an opportunity for John votes against the well-being, our well-being, the well-being of the constituent. So the next election, it doesn't matter whether John is Democrat or Republican. It becomes pretty obvious the next election, John should be out of a job. It's not science. It's not rocket science. You don't have to be a genius for that. You hire someone to do your driveway. The person cannot, will not do it. You get somebody else. But for reasons that are beyond logic, Republican constituents keep voting the same individual who cannot do the job, who will not do the job, who clearly express their lack of interest in helping them, and yet they keep voting the same people in office. So today, I'm here to tell you that you should vote as an American, not as a Republican. Now, you may not have any need for a health care which covers pre-existing condition. You may not. But I guarantee you that constituent in your state, you may even have a family member you may not be aware of who have need to be covered for pre-existing condition. Now, why would the individual that you elected to represent, to do what's better for the constituent, why would that individual decide to go against that? They do not have your well-being at heart, your best interest at heart. It is not a speculation. It is factual. It's right in front of you. They've been in full control of both houses for the past 8 years. I can give you 2 examples of what had just happened not too long ago. But before we do that, let's go and take a quick break. And when we come back, we will show you that it is imperative that you get rid of your Republican representative if you want to change the current situation the country is in. In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies, presenting to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a recent survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore. Here are 2 examples that I mentioned earlier that I will provide you to show that Republican legislators in Washington, they do not have your best interest at heart. We know that because they have worked aggressively to do what is against your best interest. Now, you may remember when Donald Trump, after Donald Trump was sworn into office, just shortly afterward, there was a stampede of Republicans on all the news media drumming the beat of tax cut for the people. You may have remembered that. Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, they all were out there drumming the beat of a big tax cut for the people. The Republican legislature borrowed, and notice I said borrowed, because we don't have that money. The country doesn't have that money. We have national debt. So they went and borrowed $1.5 trillion. That defies logic, but let's move on with the story. What they suggested out there saying a big tax cut for the people, they borrowed $1.5 trillion. They took $1.2 trillion out of that and they distributed to large corporations and wealthy individuals. Now, you may not be a mathematician, you may not even be good in math. If I borrowed $100,000 and take $90,000 out of that to give to somebody else and give you $10,000, would you consider what you receive as a big tax cut? Would you consider that? I take $100,000 from the bank, right? $100,000. I tell you, right off the bat, you're going to get a huge tax cut. I go to the bank. I didn't have the money. I go to the bank and I borrow $100,000. And out of those $100,000, I take $10,000 and I give to you. The other $90,000, I give it to my rich uncle. The one that has the mansion up the hill and that has several maids, several luxury cars, had a pool as large as a football field. You get the gist. Now, that's deceiving, because if I tell you I'm going to give you a huge amount of money and I go to the bank, borrow $100,000 and give you $10,000, of course you will be pleased with $10,000 because it's better than nothing, right? But remember, I borrowed the money. So I give you $10,000. You're more than grateful. In fact, that's what I've been hearing a lot from the Republican constituent, those who receive either $40 on their paycheck or $60 extra on their paycheck. They're very grateful because, hey, I didn't have that. But here's where the problem lies. Number one, they borrowed the money. Now, in case that escape you, when you borrow, you have to return. They borrowed $1.5 trillion. I borrow $100,000, I give you 10. The 90,000 I give it to my rich uncle. And of course, my rich uncle doesn't have to give me any money back because I'm trying to impress my rich uncle. I'm trying to be on his good grace. So I give my rich uncle $90,000. But here's the kicker. You that I just gave the $10,000, you're responsible for the whole $100,000 loan. And I kid you not, this is how the legislation was crafted. I borrowed $100,000. I only give you $10,000 out of that. But you, the constituent, owe the whole $100,000. My rich uncle doesn't have to pay a single penny. Remember, I'm trying to impress my rich uncle. In fact, he doesn't even know that I borrowed the money. He's just, and what makes it even worse is the fact that my rich uncle couldn't care about my $90,000 gift because he already has everything that he needs. I am the one trying to impress my rich uncle. And the $90,000 gift is not impressive at all. Now, to put it in perspective for you, when the Republican legislators borrowed the $1.5 trillion and took 1.2 out of that to give to large corporations and wealthy individuals, guess what? The country has been doing well. Companies have been reporting record profit, record revenue. My rich uncle, they don't care about giving them more money because they're already doing well. Record profit, record revenues. So trying to impress them with giving them money doesn't do anything. So my rich uncle is not impressed. But what makes the situation even worse is, number one, the Republican legislators were out there drumming the beat, it's a big tax cut for the people. Now, while they're saying that, number one, they know that the people were only going to receive $10,000 out of the $100,000. They knew that because they were the one crafting the legislation. So it wasn't a mistake, it wasn't an accident, it wasn't a surprise. They were the one crafting the legislation. I was the one who went to borrow the money. I was the one who knows that I'm going to give you $10,000 and I'm going to give my rich uncle $90,000, and I'm also the one that makes sure that the bank send you the bill for the $100,000. There is no surprise here, no mistake, no shocking revelation here. Republicans were drafting the legislation knowing darn well that they're going to give you just $10,000. They're going to give $90,000 to the rich in the large corporation, but you, the constituent, will have to foot up the bill. And yet they went ahead and did it anyway. So we know, we're not speculating here. We know that the Republican legislators, those in Washington that are asking you for your vote today, they're not doing anything to the best interest of the constituent, to the best interest of the country. And you know what, even worse? They did what's wrong. They lied to us. And now they're lying to you some more because they're telling you they're going to keep the healthcare that protect our people with pre-existing condition. We know that's not true. And the reason we know that is because anyone in his or her right mind would tell you that someone who tries 64 times to get rid of something doesn't wake up the next day and change his mind about it. And beside the individual that matters the most in this whole affair, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell already said, if they keep the House, they're going to try again. So do not buy this lie because Republicans are masters of deception. They've been deceiving us for the longest. So we know they asking for your vote because once they get that, whatever they do, you can complain later, but they already get what they after. So that's why we decided to weigh in, because sometimes people don't understand the impact of their decision. You cannot be deciding based on your political party, because for the past 8 years, the country has gone from bad to worse. We are at a point as a country where we don't even have a legislative branch to keep the country running like a country that has a system of democracy. We don't have that. The country is being run like any other banana republic. There is no check and balances. If that is of importance to you, if the United States of America matters to you, if the future of your kids, of your grandkids matters to you, you cannot vote your Republican legislator back to Washington. They have proven beyond a reasonable doubt they do not deserve another chance. They had 8 years, and they used those 8 years to do what harmful to the country, what hurtful to the constituent, including us. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Any man can make mistakes. Any man can make mistakes, but only an idiot persists in his error. All men are born ignorant. All. No exception. But many choose to stay and live in ignorance. Only a few recognize that ignorance is the stem of all evil and choose to be ignorant no more. It is time that we stop thinking in terms of political party and we start thinking in terms of country. The country has been in a tumultuous state, not by sheer accident, not because of some cataclysmic event, but because we have a Republican legislative branch that decide to do absolutely nothing to make certain that the country keeps its integrity. Today, we don't have allies in the world. And no matter what you hear people saying, you cannot live by yourself in this world. You cannot live like an island in this world. You need allies. Remember the famous late Michael Jackson? He had to have someone holding his hand in the beginning. We all need allies. We do. We all need allies. So, tomorrow, Tuesday, November 6th, you must vote. You cannot stay at home and say, I'm not going to vote because I'm not going to vote for Republican because of what's going on, and I'm not going to vote for Democrat. No, you cannot think that way. This country, the United States of America, is the only country you have. It's a big ship, and whatever happened to it, no matter where you're at, you will pay and suffer the consequences. The impact of what's done in Washington doesn't just affect someone in Washington or someone in Oklahoma or someone in Ohio. It impacts every individual everywhere in every corner in the United States. That's a big ship. So you cannot just leave and do nothing. Yes, I do agree that Republicans do not deserve to be voted back in office. They do not deserve that. We cannot reward someone who is not doing a good job. We cannot doing someone who is doing what is harmful, hurtful. You cannot reward that individual. So that individual must be voted out of office. Remember this thing we always talk about, the big divide, that every time we're talking about big disagreement between Democrat and Republican. Remember, for as long as I can remember, that this argument has been on the forefront. The divide between Democrat and Republican. Remember that? Well, people always think that there is a big divide between Democrat and Republican, but here's what I found out. It is not a divide between Democrat and Republican. The divide is between those who seek the truth and the wisdom and those who simply choose to stay and live in ignorance. That's the big divide in the country. It's not Democrat or Republican. It's not my party is better than your party. No, it's not that. If you take stock of whenever you're hearing disagreement, listen carefully what the disagreement is about. No, it's not between Democrat and Republican. If you listen to the argument, go on Fox and watch. They don't have a rational argument, so they go into an attack mode and smear. You watch the Republican today making a case for you to vote for them. There is sound bites. Yeah, there are plenty of sound bites, but there is no plan, because remember that Republicans since 2010 have been trying to get rid of Obamacare. Remember that? And I mentioned to you earlier that they tried 62 times under Obama, twice already under Donald Trump. Do you know they still do not have an Obamacare replacement? They simply want to get rid of what's there because they simply want to hurt the constituent. Because imagine what would happen to those 20 plus million people who are currently covered. There is no plan for it. So yes, there are sound bites. We must repeal and replace Obamacare. They've been saying that since 2010. Now, if indeed they wanted to come up with something better, wouldn't they have something better by now? Yes, Republican legislators are doing everything to hurt the constituent. They do not care about our well-being. They do not have our best interests at heart. So it is time. Tomorrow, there is no reason to be thinking about that twice. Because for 8 years, our Republican legislators, congressmen, senators, our governors, our mayors have made the case for us to vote them out of office. And we should. Join me here on the Fourth Branch at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. every Saturday. It is time. It is time. Sound-minded individuals, decent and morally bounded Americans take over the operation and the functioning of our government. Because for far too long, we have entrusted the legislators in Washington and in our respective states. to attend to the interests of the country, but they have violated our trust. They have instead attended to their own self-interest and in the process destroyed the very institution which have guaranteed a system of justice and protected our democracy. We, the people do share some of the responsibility for this predicament. Members of the Republican Party, the legislators, they've been in Washington for several decades. Mitch McConnell for 3+ decades. We, the people, have been too disengaged in political discussion, in political debate. Granted, we, the people, have also been deceived by the legislators who have mastered the art of deception, the art of pinning one group against the other, one party against the other. But the sad part is, election after election, we, the Republican constituent, send those same individuals back to Washington. The question is why? Now, both political parties are to blame for the state of the republic. But the Republican Party has long lost its way. You see, the GOP leaders have long abandoned the principles, the virtue the parties used to stand for. By most analysis, GOP legislators do not think in terms of the country, in terms of future generation. They seek instant gratification, campaign financing, a party win at all costs, however detrimental to the country. It is time. It is well overdue. Republican constituents get rid of those very old legislators who have long lost touch with reality, with changing time, and with a changing culture. It is up to us. It is up to the rest of us to put an end to this madness. Join me here on the 4th branch at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. every Saturday. I do thank you for spending the time with me, and I invite you tomorrow. I know by the time that this program is broadcasted, the election would have already started, and some people would have already cast their vote. But there are also a large group of people who would be voting after hours, during lunch, and so on. And I do invite you at that time for the very last call to provide you with even more information as to why it is critical to vote your Republican legislators out of office. The most important is you must vote tomorrow. You have to vote tomorrow. This is a time when your vote will define the direction of the country. And it is necessary to establish some guideline or to reinstate rather the guideline that has made the United States a country others look to for examples to copy, to emulate. But the past 2 years, there is no country in the world who would want to emulate the United States. Not a single one. Even the country that we consider rogue, country we consider run by authoritarian, no country in the world today would want to emulate what the United States has been for the past 2 years. We cannot shrug it off because, as I mentioned earlier, this ship called the United States of America, it's just one ship. Whatever happened to that ship, everybody in it will be impacted. So for all the sound-minded, for all the decent Republican constituents who are going to the poll tomorrow, I have this message for you. You cannot vote for Republican if you care about the United States of America. You must not vote to reward Republicans back to Washington. They have done enough damage to the country. They have proven to not have your best interests at heart. They're not going to change no matter what they say. So it is up to you to make certain they understand the message that if someone gets elected and decide not to do the job, then we, the people, will get rid of that individual. It is a behavior we should have had a long time ago. I invite you tomorrow to spend some more time with me, during which we will continue the conversation about the election. And right after the election, we'll go back to the topic we were discussing prior. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever that happened to be.
The Fourth Branch Podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website, located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.